MiHoYo! 700 days. For over 700 days, MiHoYo, I have faithfully logged into your game. When will you relieve me of this torment?
As an outsider looking in, I have to say that the Fate collab, at least for me, is nothing short of absolute cinema. With that being said though, I can't really say that I'm a huge fan of the Fate IP, and even though I do respect what the Fate IP has accomplished along with Ufotable amazing animations, I am more or less a tourist at the end of the day. I have not consumed Fate to the same extent as a lot of other people who have watched the entirety of the Fate anime series, maybe played Fate Grand Order, the gacha hell of gachas, or read the light novels, to name a few examples. Unfortunately though, there are people out there that are trying to give a negative spin on this collaboration event, saying that MiHoYo's greedy or anti-consumer, and I simply don't agree. So there's certain pure facts that these individuals are just completely ignoring, so that way they can try to run this greedy / anti-consumer narrative that they have. This event, for one, was announced all the way back in August of 2024. So between now and when the collaboration is going to start, we're looking at about 10 months worth of time, and that's plenty of time to have been able to save and prep for this event. I understand real life takes priority over everything else, or if somebody was dissatisfied with Honkai Star Rail at one point in time and so they took a break from the game, those are completely fine reasons. However, there is no excuse for anyone to sit here and say that they didn't have enough time to save. If somebody chose to step away from the game, that was their personal decision. However, MiHoYo cannot fully accommodate for every single person's life situation. These are live service games, and they are going to continue to move on whether or not we decide to play them or take care of other things, assuming that these games don't shut down. Second point, if this was being anti-consumer or anti-friendly or greedy or whatever the case is, and why is Archer being given out for free? This is something that many people also ignore. And in regards to the light cone, which is the big reason why this narrative started in the first place, this is allowing people who have been patient and who have saved to make their passes get more mileage, more bang for your savings essentially. So now, instead of these players who have faithfully saved across the months, they are now getting an additional reward for their patience. Now they can just focus on Saber, Finon, or any of the reruns, and then they can get Archer's light cone without even having to pull on the actual banner itself. I think this is really great for consumers, again, especially the individuals who have saved. Beyond that, there's also the fact that this collaboration banners are going to be around for more than one patch. In my opinion, this is not normal in the gacha space. Commonly, when there is a collaboration event, these characters are only around for one patch, and then after that they go away. So even for people who have literally no savings, if they want to get Archer's light cone, as long as they save throughout 3.4 and 3.5, they should still be able to secure Archer's light cone without even participating in this particular spending event. At the end of the day, if MiHoYo really was being anti-consumer and truly being greedy, Archer would not have been provided for free, and the 200 pass event that's going to be taking place would not exist at all. And beyond everything else, we would not have known 10 months ahead of time that this collaboration would have been a thing in the first place. What would have happened is they would have dropped this giant bomb on us, only gave us about a month to prepare, to drive FOMO through the roof, and the collab event itself would only be around for one patch instead of multiple patches. I just don't see the anti-consumerism here, and I don't see the greed here. One thing that I will say though is with this collaboration and the banners being around for multiple patches, I do hope that other games do adopt something similar for their respective gachas in the future. I think this is really cool. This gives more exposure to the IP that's being collaborated with. It gives people more opportunity to pick up these characters and maybe encourage them more to consume the IP itself. I wouldn't be surprised if there are players who play Saber and or Archer and think, oh, maybe I should go watch Unlimited Blade Works now because I like these characters. I want to see how they are in the anime, or maybe they'll go and read the light novels, whatever the case may be. My short TLDR is this collab is an absolute W for the individuals who waited until the last minute to save. Hopefully they've learned a valuable life lesson, and I would prefer they learn that valuable life lesson in a gacha game where the consequences are going to be a lot lower in comparison to if they make this same type of mistake on a real life level where the consequences could be much more severe. And who says that games can't teach you life lessons? So in regards to both Saber and Archer, I think their animations look phenomenal. I think these are very faithful to the anime adaptation of Unlimited Blade Works, and MiHoYo did a pretty good job. With that being said, I have no interest in picking up Saber. I already have Blade, and Blade is getting some very noticeable most notable buffs that far exceeded my expectations. I will comment on that later on in the video. Archer, similar situation to Saber. I think his animations look really good as well, and I do plan on building Archer, although I'm not for sure how much I'll use him. I don't have Sunday, I don't have Sparkle, so the skill point usage might end up being a huge bottleneck for myself in particular, but he is still a free character, so I'm gonna mess around with him nonetheless. Now, as far as his usability outside of like maybe APOC and Memory of Chaos, it's really hard to say for the foreseeable future. He may get new supports in the future that sync up very well with him, and if at some point in the far off future MiHoYo decided that they wanted to make a new in-game mode that was strictly single target, this is a mode where I think hunt characters would really thrive, and I wouldn't be surprised if MiHoYo started to mix in this new potential game mode and swap it out with Pure Fiction and Apocalyptic Shadow on a per patch basis, so that way it keeps the rotation a little bit more of a mix of players. I don't personally see Memory of Chaos ever falling out of the rotation just because of how it was designed, and it is like the OG of in-game modes for Honkai Star Rail, and it's normally their easiest way to push a particular new character that has recently come out. In a lot of cases for Memory of Chaos. Not always, but in a lot of cases. I'm going to very briefly talk about the upcoming characters that we're going to have. First off, we have Seadra. And honestly, the number of people who have said something along the lines of welcome back Fuwa has been a little infuriating for me because I don't see Fuwa in this character design whatsoever. You know, this is the peak definition of tell me you know nothing about Fuwa without telling me you know nothing about Fuwa. I want to reach through every person's phone or computer screen or TV who said something along these lines and just show them a picture of Fuwa and shake it in their face and like, this is Fuwa, not her, her. Anyways, rant done in that regards. I have no idea how this character is going to be. There's a lot of speculation that this is going to be a Harmony character that should work well with Finon, but we'll have to wait and see how this character's kit is whenever she comes out. In regards to Finon, I've already had a crash out at the start of the video, so take that for what you will. I'm not going to comment anymore on Finon/Kevin. I think the crash out at the start of the video completely justifies and embodies my emotional feelings. I still have the intentions on getting my hands on Finon at some point in the future. It just won't be right now. In regards to Hyselin, this is the character that I'm going to be saving for because she is going to be a character who is going to elevate D.O.T in some way, shape, or form. Now, the big question that a lot of people have on their minds when it comes to Hyselin is who is she going to replace? So there's a couple of scenarios that could happen with Hyselin. She could be a situational swap out for Black Swan because we do have a lot of content in the game that doesn't have both lightning and wind weakness at the same time. Yes, back in the day, if you had E1 Black Swan and you had E2 Kafka, there was content that you could just brute force, even if the enemies had lightning resist and wind resistance. But I do think that that strategy is becoming less and less viable as time goes by. So having characters be on element, I think is just going to be a lot better. There is also a scenario where Hyselin will be strong enough to where you don't have to run a Harmony character with the D.O.T archetype. So that means Ranmei would be getting swapped out for Hyselin. Although, with that being said, that might not be all sugar and rainbows since the D.O.T archetype has been known to be paper. Multiple people have acknowledged this through their own experience playing D.O.T. So Hyselin will have to come in and provide substantial enough damage to where players are going to be comfortable enough not to use Ranmei in that third slot. The absolute rare scenario, finally, would be Hyselin ends up being so powerful that you just completely drop your sustain and you run somebody like, say, a Ranmei, for example. You do Ranmei, Kafka, Black Swan, Hyselin, and you just no sustain it and you kill the enemy before they kill you. Again, I'm very skeptical about this given how paper D.O.T teams have historically been, but who knows, maybe Hyselin will be able to enable that option. But even then, I do have my level of skepticism about this, as this is probably likely going to require very high vertical investment in order to make it function in the first place. That's of course just my opinion. I will provide more updates on this character as we get closer to the release date of this character. One thing that I will say though is that even though Finon is going to be heavily pushed for 3.4, I'm highly suspecting in 3.5 it is going to be a quote-unquote D.O.T patch. Since we have gotten confirmation that Silverwolf is going to be running in 3.5, there's a huge possibility that Kafka will be rerunning along with Hyselin as well. This almost more than likely guarantees that Black Swan is going to rerun as well, and they'll probably just do a heavy D.O.T rerun, and I suspect we'll probably get Phantalia for APOC Shadow, and then probably for Pure Fiction and or for Memory Chaos, there's probably going to be a D.O.T heavy oriented Turbulence, Blessing, Grip Mechanic, whatever the case may be. Historically speaking, whenever there's been D.O.T getting pushed super hard, whether it was in Memory Chaos or in Pure Fiction, players who didn't have any investment in D.O.T tended to suffer a lot and they were pretty vocal about it. So me, I'm preparing for this and I will be ready for it, hopefully. So Sam is going to be getting a new cosmetic in 3.4. It's going to be basically like a schoolgirl outfit. I think the schoolgirl outfit looks fine, although I am highly disappointed that there is a lack of substantial changes with the actual mech suit. I think people would have been fine if it had just been a more substantial color palette swap. Currently, the changes are so subtle and they're barely noticeable, and I'm not for sure why miHoYo didn't decide to go with a more aggressive color palette swap. I know Honkai Impact 3rd has a long history of doing color palette swap cosmetics. I think something similar could have been done here to give players more incentive to get Sam's cosmetic, but unfortunately it is what it is. Hopefully in the future, if something like this is going to be done for other characters, I can only hope that there is a more substantial color palette swap if the design clothing structure or armor structure is going to be the exact same. Of the characters that are going to be getting buffs in 3.4, Silverwolf is the clear winner of these 4 characters, and it's not even close. The fact that her ultimate will now be a multi-targeted ultimate instead of single target basically means that she will now be far more viable to use against Aventurine than what she ever has before. From my personal experience using her in the past against Aventurine, she has really struggled with the dice mechanic. Now she will effortlessly be able to deal with this mechanic and just go on about her day. So huge W on that. She'll also be viable to use against the Banana Dino TV boss, whereas before she was not really a viable choice. And I suspect she's going to see a big performance spike for Pure Fiction, because I have not used Silverwolf in Pure Fiction in a long time, and I'll be able to use her in Pure Fiction again. I'm highly looking forward to that as well. The next character who obviously benefited from these buffs is Blade. Now, I had previously spoke on Blade. My mindset at the time was essentially, I hope they make him 100% HP scaling, which they did, but I was not expecting that they would give him a taunt increase buff, Absolute Cinema, and they're also going to allow his follow-up to generate 15 more energy. So in my opinion, they made him more full-blown HP, no more split scaling, and they are making him more follow focused than what he has been. These buffs are also going to be an indirect buff for Jade as well for players who do Blade Jade, because if Blade is getting attacked more often, he's going to be doing more follow-ups. That means Jade gets more stacks. That means Jade's going to do more attacks and do more damage as well. I'm really loving the changes that are done for Blade. Big thumbs up on that. Now, Kafka essentially is going to have more access to proccing DOTs than before. I was not expecting that they would give another charge to her follow-up, but I do think this is going to be very good for players who have Kafka's E1, which essentially means that this will be able to be applied at a much faster rate than before. So kudos on that. I'll take it. I'm not going to complain about it too much. I personally thought she was fine prior, but I think these changes are going to be pretty good going into the future. Jin Liu, in my opinion, is the character that got the short end of the stick. They changed her from an attack scaling character to an HP scaling character. I understand that in the past, she was a character who drained team's HP to increase her own damage output, but she was still attack scaling in terms of her own damage. I guess the best way I could put this is kind of a bait and switch. This would be like if they took Blade, who used to be a split scale between attack and HP, and they said something along the lines of, oh, you know, Blade, we're gonna now make him a defense scaling DPS. I would personally be livid. So I feel for every single Jin Liu player out there who is now potentially going to have to regrind up a new set if their old one was just super attack focused and things along those lines. I really feel for the Jin Liu mains out there. Overall, I do think that this patch is going to be a 9 for 10. I think the only 2 criticisms I have is really the lack of change in Sam's armor mech for the cosmetic, as well as Jin Liu becoming an HP scaler when she has historically been an attack scaler. Those are really my only 2 criticisms with this 3.4 patch, but I think everything else is an absolute banger. Finally, most recently, we got a trailer for the Lord Ravagers as a collective group. And all I can say is my mind is blown. Lore overload. I can't process everything, but 2 things that I will say about this trailer. The English VA of Ayaka, Erica Mendez, is basically VAing for Celanova, and I think the timing on this is so hilarious because Skirk just recently released in Genshin Impact, and I'm pretty sure lore-wise Skirk is stronger than Ayaka. So in my own headcanon, I'm thinking, oh well, Ayaka probably just got mad and thought she would just jump universes and just become a Lord Ravager. My own headcanon canon. I know that's not true, but hey, same VAs, so I'm going to go with it. And it seems like to me, these Lord Ravagers are meant to be anti-Eons, so their whole purpose is to be the opposite of whatever Eon they're supposed to be going up against. I think this is a very interesting concept. You know what this actually reminds me of? When I was growing up, there was a long-running series called Power Rangers. It started off in Japan as Super Sentai or something like that, but I didn't know this when I was growing up. Didn't find that until much later on. The point that I'm making is that when it came to the 4th or the 5th iteration of Power Rangers, there was a series called Power Rangers in Space. In this particular series, there was evil Power Rangers and they were called the Psycho Rangers. And this is still today one of my favorite antagonists amongst all the Power Ranger series in general. They were hardcore, they were lit, they looked dope, and they gave the Power Rangers so many problems. The Power Rangers did all kinds of strategies to finally bring them down, and it was great. I loved every bit of it. And that's the vibe that I get from here, is that the Lord Ravagers remind me so much of the Psycho Rangers all the way back in Power Rangers in Space. That's all the commentary that I have for this video. If you have taken out the time to watch this or listen to this, just want to say thank you so much for your time. Be safe out there. Deuces.
Nice, like my friends. Indulge yourselves!
Show me what you can do. I'll give you 5 seconds. I venture forever. Triumphant! Victory is inevitable! Never hesitate!
Underestimating us will cost you!
In the mood for another beating? Nice, like my friends. Indulge yourselves!
Is it coming? Are you gonna let's play? Let me go!
It ain't over.
Sportsmanlike.
Fangs and claws got dull. I venture forever. Triumphant! Victory is inevitable! I won't do. The fearless knows not fear.
Awesome! Time to Azure Dragon, White Tiger, less carbs, what's this? Super Biggie!
Nice, like my friends. Indulge yourselves! Step up, look.
I venture for forever.